Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and this is Mike Jones, and you are you, and you're watching our show. Congratulations.
Yes, that's right. Hello, Dale. How's it
Hello.
going? I always try to figure out the significance of the picture that Dale has on his right hand side there, and so this is. I'm assuming this is a depiction of our representatives who take an oath but have their fingers crossed when
That's
they.
exactly right, sir.
Yes,
Yes, yes.
yes,
Now, it's kind of hard to tell if these are crossed fingers or just a single finger, but is there any
yes.
difference? Yeah.
Nah, not really.
Right, right. So, yes, that's what happens. We're going to be talking about some of the controversial issues that are facing the county commissioners. That's rare, and
Yes.
I would contend that there are three main issues that the county commissioners are really trying to squirm out of. Hey, it's nothing to do with us. And what would you think the three top issues are, Mike?
I have no idea, Dale. You know, Dale rattles off to me before the show. He goes, "Hey, these are the three things."
No, I don't. I just say, would you agree that here are some of the
Yeah.
top issues?
I remembered him saying RV Cog because that just
Right.
sounds. It reminds me of Spacely Sprockets or something, and his competitor. And it's weird to me that we have a Rogue Valley Council of Governments. It sounds like the Illuminati or something.
It is. It is.
Yes,
And
I
we
would really
made
like to know what is it that they do? They talk about how they're going to govern, and hey, listen, we can all agree that we're all going to do this,
Yeah.
and we are going to secretly enact Agenda 21. That's our objective.
I'm not
You know,
sure they're being so secret about it, but no, as Simon Hare puts it, and I can only react to his pursed lips here. What Simon Hare says is the main reason, according to Simon, that we belong to the Rogue Valley Council of Governments is that they run the Food and Friends program.
mm.
Really? Okay, so
And that was one of the other things that you mentioned. I remember that.
it's those two are
See?
linked, right? Okay.
My brain, it's very fertile. I always tell people, I have a brain like a block of Swiss cheese. You throw something in there, you don't know if you're hitting a hole or if you're hitting something solid. Who knows? I might remember it, maybe I won't. If I'm passionate about it, then I'll remember it. But you have to tell me why I should be passionate about it. So Dale's going to do that.
That's what I'm going to do. And anytime you see Mike on the street, feel free to throw something at him and see if it hits a hole or.
Oh man, yes. I hope that doesn't turn into a trend.
No, it's okay. So, we're going to play videotape tonight from the second two issues that I think are important. The first one is about, and we've played this for you before, the Rogue Valley Council of Governments does run the Food and Friends program, which is also sometimes referred to as a Meals on Wheels program. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it tries to be sure that some of our older citizens, especially older, and some of those that aren't doing as well with money on fixed income, that they have meals, that somebody's fixing something for them. I'm losing a lot of weight. I'm not part of that program. And that somebody's fixing something for them and that they actually bring it to their home. My mother used to deliver those things. Okay.
All right.
She could easily have been on the other side of that, but she was trying to be helpful in her community.
Well, that's awesome. I totally applaud people that do that sort of thing. I often think of what I should be doing charitably that I'm not. So
you do a lot of work in this community and people are recognizing you for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's Mike Jones. Thank you, Mike. So there's been some controversy because what the commissioners were supposed to be doing, there's even been an editorial in the Courier about this, believe it or not. What the commissioners were supposed to be doing was providing a place for the Food and Friends program to exist, and then probably trying to help them find another place to move, because maybe sometimes you can't stay in the same place forever, like this story we did last night about the motocross kids, BMX bicycle racers. They can't stay in a certain place forever. And so now these folks, they're telling them, well, you're going to need to move the Food and Friends program. Okay, where are they going to move? Well, nobody knows. And I don't think that there's anybody, I'm not saying that there's anybody that wants them to go out of business or some other nefarious thing. That is besides the point. That's a red herring.
Well,
Nobody's
wait a minute.
saying that.
If you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
How big of a space do these people have, and what do they have? Like a big kitchen set up there where they're slinging these meals out? Is that
They
the deal?
do have a big kitchen there. That's right. And they have been preparing this stuff, and they put it into, I understand, little boxes or little bags or whatever, and they see it gets delivered out to these older folks, mostly older.
And this is happening at the fairgrounds now, and they're going to have to leave there too?
Well, it's happening at the 4-H building.
Oh, gotcha.
Where the 4-H would like to get it back so they can teach more courses about canning peaches or something, right? 4-H kind of stuff. Okay, there's a 4-H district. Now, the point of this long soliloquy here is that the commissioners say, well, don't blame us. We got nothing to do with this. Here's the problem with that point of view. The 4-H district is made up half of some citizens and half of all 3 commissioners. So the commissioners are half of the 4-H district board, yet they say we've got nothing to do with this. No, you can't escape any kind of responsibility by saying it's not us.
Well, that'd be like them saying they have nothing to do with the budget committee or something like that.
That's right. They're half of the budget committee. That's quite right. And that's why this next election is so important. If you think the magical budget's driving you crazy, we need to get new people in there. And then they would put in new people beyond that. It's kind of like how a new administration will appoint somebody to the Supreme Court. Do you think the Supreme Court's interesting and important? The same thing goes with the Budget Committee, okay?
Sure.
And so there's only one fiscal conservative on the Budget Committee now, and that was a big mistake that they made. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and so what that would be like, the federal equivalent of Ways and Means. Ways and Means is the committee that they all want to be in charge of because that's where the power is, slinging the money.
That's exactly right. Right. So it's impossible for the commissioners to get away with, as long as we're watching them and you're watching us, it's impossible for them to say, well, we got nothing to do with this Food and Friends program. Yes, you do. Okay, and so next week they're going to have a meeting in the little back room, and I will be there, and I'll tell you what they say, and we'll shoot some videotape, and we'll all get a chance to see them in action. Okay, now, so it's also important to remember, just rolling back just a little, a perfect example of how 2 commissioners can decide everything for everybody, or at least put it on the table for a vote. And you may recall that it was Simon Hare that started this thing about these junk ordinances, the 4 junk ordinances. It was a huge blowout. In terms of politics, you can't get a whole lot bigger than this. 80% of us said, no, we don't want this. And even, go ahead.
I think people would have had to been pretty well plugged in quite a ways back, because that predates any of the other 2 existing commissioners. And as I recall, this was sort of a thing where he sort of handed it off and recommended it to Cheryl, and like an idiot, she took it up.
Yeah, Cheryl and Keith decided they loved this idea. And then Simon started saying, I'm paraphrasing, I don't think this is going to work. And they were like, no, we're going to do this. No, I really just don't think it's going to work. And so he went strong against it, along with almost all the citizens, right? 80% said no thanks. Cheryl made it clear that the reason that she was pushing on this is that she was mad at her neighbor. She said it.
Right.
And she didn't like what her neighbor was doing, and she was using that as a personal example to clean this whole thing up, and to have and it's not so bad necessarily to have ordinances about cleaning things up, but it was a little exaggeration for her to say, well, those who are against us, I guess, are in favor of rats.
And yet she's the best commissioner we've ever had.
Yeah, according to the sneak preview.
Yes.
Yes, she is. Curtis Hayden. Thank you, Curtis. Okay, so so 2 commissioners, this is important, 2 commissioners were able to put that on the ballot and to push for it, and made us all vote on it. And then
Mm.
80% blowout, despite what Cheryl kept, well, everyone's going to vote for this, paraphrase. And they didn't, right? Oh, I'm getting mobbed, and they're carrying me around on their shoulders, and they're saying, you're our hero. Well, apparently not. So it's all made up. Okay, so so 2 can do it. Now, so an interesting thing, I hope for you, happened on Wednesday as there were 2 proclamations. Simon has says proclamations mean nothing. Well, it's symbolic, but according to him, it means nothing. One of them was read. It was from Zonta. Go figure. And there were 2 commissioners that signed on that, and they said, okay, we're going to read this. The other one was not read. Well, we can't read this because there's only 2 commissioners that signed on it.
Mm.
Now, wait a minute.
Yeah, right. Doesn't that
Uh,
directly contradict what you just said?
that's right. Exactly right. Exactly right. So you're
That's,
going to hear some videotape here, and we're going to talk about it. Where I don't know if we can take any stands on this because there's only 2 of us, guys. You've done it 100 times. This, not these guys, but commissioners have in the past. All it takes is 2, and you do it all the time. So don't be telling us we can't do it because there's not unanimous. They're not unanimous most of the time. Okay, not unanimous. So go ahead, and we're going to take a look at video number 1, which is Keith Heck explaining why it's not their fault. Go ahead. Can't hear it.
Yes, what the heck here?
Once again, they're tongue-tied.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? I think that it has something to do with the default setting. And once again, the setting up of Windows 10. And when I set these settings, and I'm going to check it right now and see if that's
And
what
I'm
it is.
going to vamp in the meantime.
Okay. You just go ahead and do that.
Okay. One of the things we're going to talk about tomorrow is the Daily Courier and some of the new things that are happening there. Now, I like these 2 new reporters that are replacing Jim Moore, but I was really surprised to see on Friday, here's Rika Brown. Rika Brown, she's at the top on the front page of the Courier. Oh, well, okay, that's interesting. Everybody should have, I didn't say every dog should have her day, but everybody should maybe get a chance to be on the front page of the Courier. Well, she's doing some kind of gathering of signatures. Oh, really? Yeah, she's going to take them to the city government, and she's going to explain to them why they must not be restricting marijuana. Okay. Well, how many signatures is she looking for? She's looking for 100. 100? Well, I don't think that's that impressive. I mean, but okay. I mean, if after a week we only had 100 viewers of our shows, we'd be crying, Okay, but sometimes we don't. Most of the time we do. The other day we had one where it was like 350 or something like that. Okay, so so top of the, look at what she's doing. Why, she's talking about pulling weeds and smoking weeds. Okay, just too bad they aren't the same, huh? Okay, so so there's a story done by Jules, this new reporter over at the Daily Courier. I'm heading in for a landing. Are you almost ready, Mike? Yeah, maybe not.
No, actually not. I'm sorry about this. This is taking some time. I may have to even restart this entire program. This not this program, but this program that I'm using.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm just going to continue. So I'm reading through the article, and near the end it says, well, Rika Brown has gotten a number of signatures from people that are out of the area, which is a little bit odd because, I mean, it is about a Grants Pass city council and only about Grants Pass and what they're going to do, which is totally different than somewhere like Gold Hill, for example. And so she said, well, she wrote in the article, Jules did, I like Jules, that Rika Brown has already gathered 16 signatures. Now, Jules, if I get 16 signatures or 16 viewers for this show, do I get to be on the front page of the Courier? 16? Really? That's all that it takes to make the front page of the Courier? Now, it's true, all a dog has to do is lick an ice cream cone and he gets on the front page, but this is a little bit different. This is about local politics, right? 16 signatures, and some of them are from Portland and from Washington State. Really? That's all that it takes? It's kind of odd priorities. So in the meantime, here's Sandy Casanelli that's saying 676 signature sheets. These are just the sheets, not even counting how many are on there. They were not done correctly by the clerk. He ignored the law. He just said, well, I'm not going to enforce this law. Really? Now, what gives you the ability? It says under there, you must sign this under penalty of law. He didn't. The courier wasn't interested in seeing the pictures. They weren't interested in getting copies of it. They weren't interested in talking about it. What kind of newspaper is not interested in even talking about it? And so she wrote a letter to the editor calling him to task on this. Well, we're not going to print that, says Kevin Widdowson. Guess what they just did today? They printed her letter to the editor. Now, why would they do that?
Intimidation. That if we intimidated them, that's what.
I think that's a possibility. Actually, they're actually responding. They're paying attention to things like Facebook. That's amazing. They're paying attention to people's opinions. That's great. Okay, yay. That's
well,
terrific.
Dale, I think I'm either ready or I'm not.
Oh, one of the two. Ooh, let's try ready. Okay,
let's
go ahead.
flip a coin. Here we go.
The situation on the mineral withdrawal, that is a certainly the individual commissioners will be commenting. I have no question in my mind about that.
Well, I have a question about that. When are individual commissioners going to be commenting? Here was an excellent opportunity to comment, and he didn't.
Right. I believe there was some individual commissioners there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and they were a quorum as well. Individual. I have no question about that. You know what? We have a question about that. When are you going to comment about this mineral withdrawal? Really? Okay. Next.
My position might not be the position of the full board, and that's the only hiccup as far as that goes. But I certainly will be commenting on it, and I'm sure that others will be as well. But
like Simon, Simon, who's there now.
He's right there. Okay, and I'm sure the others will be commenting, and I will be too. Wait a minute. We had that meeting on a Thursday. The place was packed with people who were bussed in, or whatever you call that, flown in, parachuted in, and Keith was there.
Yeah, and that's listen, and so was Cheryl, and that's part of what's going on here. Listen, chicken excrement, that is the two words that I have for this situation, because listen, he was making his opinion public a couple of weeks ago at the weekly business session, telling us what he thought. And Simon has never shut up about what he thought about this sort of thing. And then now all of a sudden they don't want to take a position as a board. Why? Because Cheryl's a lefty? What's that all about?
The other thing is
we can't make her mad. Well, then why don't you just make her queen then?
Also, Jack Swift was there. Jack Swift from the Southern Oregon Resource Alliance. Jack Swift is a very strong advocate but he had nothing to say. Well, it was left to a couple other people, including me, to say anything. So 61 people say happy, positive things. What, can nobody? I mean, hey, I'll go up individually against 61 people. I don't have any problem doing that. Okay. I would imagine our viewers don't have any
problem. that would be a heck of an event. You got a ring in the middle, Dale in one corner, and 61 people in the other. Wow. I think a lot of people would pay to. Yes. Finally, this gig may start paying off here.
Yeah, paying off. Yeah, a dunk tank. Okay, go ahead and play the next little clip, please.
Because it is an issue of which it was magnified quite boldly by the numbers of folks that were here on the Thursday night meeting. This is probably not an issue of some consensus board to speak as a board position.
What was that he just said?
What he said is that I'm really scared about this.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I don't want to buck the majority, and this is why it's so important to be the majority. This is why it's so important to come down there in numbers. Listen, I mean, if you care about this stuff, show up and represent. A lot of these people, listen, there was a few people that showed up. You know why? A few local people, I should say. You know why they showed up? Because somebody organized them. Somebody sent them an email and said, hey, you need to be here and speak your mind on this thing. And then, of course, they were emboldened after they showed up, and there was a bunch of trees out in the street, people dressed up as trees and people dressed up as fish and all kinds of stuff going on there. And then you had this parade of, people in support of what's going on. So now that he has observed this situation, oh, well, you couldn't possibly issue something as a board. I would still venture a guess that the majority of the citizens of Josephine County are not in favor of mineral withdrawal. But
mineral withdrawal in this case means withdrawing our ability to withdraw minerals.
It's
strangely
so
worded.
Stupid. Listen, this reminds me of the Jonathan Gruber statement there. A lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And we wrote Obamacare in such a way, in such tortured language, that no one would ever read it and understood what it actually meant. And so we could just go ahead and do it. That's why they name stuff like this, because if you name something the Clean Air Bill, you're a pariah if you oppose it. If you name it the Nutritious Food for Children Act, there's no way that's getting turned down. So they stack it up with all kinds of whatever pork they want to, and it doesn't matter. Well, in this particular case, so now they came and they had a showing there, and now Simon and Keith can no longer represent what I think is probably the majority view in the county.
What was it that Keith said? He said, I've got it written down, this is probably not an issue of some consensus board.
Here, let's just watch it again, because that was
of some consensus board to speak as a board position.
Yes, but just know going into this that what he's saying is a bunch of people showed up, so I'm not going to advocate that we speak out as a board on this thing. I'll give you my opinion, but whatever. So here that is again. Because
it is an issue of which it was magnified quite boldly by the numbers of folks that were here on the Thursday night meeting. This is probably not an issue of some consensus board to speak as a board position.
Why the hell not?
Well, I know what he's trying to say. I just had to laugh a little bit at this.
You know what?
I mean, English is native language, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is interesting. It's like, if a lot of people think it and they show up here and they do their little song and dance, and listen, it was very successful. There isn't any question that that side represented itself quite well.
But what do you have, feet of clay? What are you not going to say, God bless America, sing that at a Republican committee meeting? Where's your problem? Stand up for what you believe. We do every day.
I just, it's too bad.
Have some guts. Go ahead.
Because the board is supposed to be representing county citizens, and there was quite a strong voice to that. That is not going to deter me from speaking about the situation, but as far as the board speaking, we have not yet even met yet to talk about should we, won't we, will we.
Okay, stop right there. This is beautiful. There's two things. One is the board has many times bucked up against the citizens.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one easy example, the junk ordinance is 80%. We said we didn't want it. Almost everybody said we didn't want it. And as it turned out, we were mathematically correct. But the second part of this is, he said, we have not yet even met yet. We have not yet even met yet. That's an important thing. Remember, I'm going to try to clean that up. We have not even met. We haven't even met on this issue. But play the next video. This is from the day before.
When do we, or what's the plan, this mineral withdrawal as far as the board expressing a position?
That's the day before. Now, I easily could have gone back and gotten several videos where they have discussed mineral withdrawal. He just said, we have not yet met about mineral withdrawal. Well, I didn't need to go back and get 18 videos. I just go back to the day before.
Yeah. No, listen, and this is just so illustrative of why it's necessary to show up and support things. You know, listen, it's so easy now to just let things go, and the side that is in favor of using some, withdrawing some minerals and perhaps cutting a tree here and there. You're not organized like these people are. You just aren't. And that's a shame, because you know what? This thing that they do works. Okay. Had you shown up in numbers and been a counter to this, well, there probably would have been a riot, but at least it would have been clear to Mr. Heck there and others on the board that, hey, guess what? Here's what we think. But now they believe this, whether it is indicative of the thinking of the citizens here in Josephine County or not.
So many of them were from out of the area.
Yes, many, most.
Well, I don't know most, but look, the main point to me, however, is slightly different than the people that didn't speak. I'm not happy about that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up speaking. I wasn't going to, but I mean, somebody needed to at least ask the question. No, the thing that's really hitting me about all this is this idea of these easy lies. Okay. I'm thinking about maybe doing a series called A Lifestyle of Lying with little quotes from these guys. We see it from Simon. We've seen it from Cheryl. We're seeing it from Keith. I mean, he just said to us at this meeting on Wednesday that we haven't even met yet to talk about mineral withdrawal. And they did it just the day before. This lying thing comes to him so easily that he says at a public meeting on one day, what are we going to do about mineral withdrawal? And the next day he claims they've never even talked about mineral withdrawal.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, how long did that conversation go on in the back room there? Did they have a little back and forth about that?
Yeah, about 20 minutes worth. We're going to play a little bit more for you. But and the fact that there were two commissioners, there's been three commissioners when they've talked, or two other commissioners rather than just Simon and Keith. And two commissioners can make a decision. They do it all the time.
Oh, I've never seen them reticent about kicking a decision out when there was two people there.
But here's the point to me, which is why I'm thinking of doing this new little series of stories that would come back all the time. How easy is it for this guy just to escape any kind of responsibility? You've asked us to hold them accountable, which is what we're doing. Look how easy it was for him to say, oh, by the way, we've never met on this. I asked Simon afterwards, why would he say, I need to stop asking that question? Why would he say you've never? I need to stop, because we all know the reason he's saying it, because he's trying to get himself and the board out of hot water for stuff that they're doing or not doing. And he just lied to you flat out. It just happened the day before. It's not like he's forgotten. Well, I don't know with Keith, but no, he knows that they have. Why is he telling you they haven't? That's what this show is about. Go ahead, keep playing.
Well, there's two issues. Just to clarify, the request for a moratorium on dredge mining, which I don't think we're going to. We're not going to join the lawsuit, but that doesn't mean we couldn't take a position publicly.
Really?
And that was the day before?
Yeah, and we couldn't take a decision. Okay, so
haven't met on it. Well, maybe this just depends on what your definition of the word met is.
They've talked several times about this, and they had their own mineral advisory board come in. That's Mr. Dixon, and he said that he would very much like if the commissioners would consider signing in on as a friend of the people who are challenging this thing about the moratorium on dredge mining. Well, the commissioners have decided, as Cheryl pointed out, well, we can't do that because, you can never win in lawsuits and they'll just keep taking it to court.
Yeah, and it seemed to me that when Dennis Dixon was sitting right there, she said, well, I'm not in favor of that. So, it seemed to me that she's openly non-supportive of the miners.
There's plenty of ways to show your support. There's plenty of ways. And there are a lot of people in our county, I'm not in favor of, raping the landscape or something like that. But I think that the idea that you can't have two little guys out there, but it's ridiculous. And that's what I said at that Thursday meeting. But see, Keith can't be bothered to try to get up and say anything in support of citizens. Go ahead, play the next little part from this meeting. They are talking about this issue.
I didn't know if the board wanted to express a position as far as the board goes, or is that something that we individually as board members can express? I mean, because I will certainly express my concerns, but I don't know if that was what do we want to do something as unanimous voice together?
Well, I can't speak for her,
Yeah.
but I don't think we're going to be together. I don't think we're going to be unanimous.
Well, to me, if we can't be unanimous, we have to do it individually.
That's what I mean.
If we can't be unanimous, we say it individually. Well, duh.
It's very, very clear in that particular situation that Keith is referring to Cheryl, and so too is Simon. I don't know what's going on there. Have you ever heard this rumor that if you get a bunch of women together in one place, that all of their menstrual cycles will synchronize to the strongest woman in the group? Maybe that's what's happened here.
They've been emasculated. They're afraid to even speak up.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, I'm. Yes. That's kind of a sad story.
Let me ask you this, and our entire audience: are they speaking about the thing that Keith just said they never have spoken about? Of course they are. So I got to stop asking why. I was about to say why. No, I got to stop doing that. Keith is just directly lying to you. That's all.
No,
that's all
listen.
There is.
I'm sure, I'm sure that he would come up with something that, we didn't meet with the mining board about this or, whatever. I'm sure he'd have some way of backpedaling out of that. But this, that was very, very clear to me that they had a discussion about how neither one of them has any huevos. And, we'll have to wait till Cheryl gets back to find out what we think about this.
If you're not unanimous, they have many times not been unanimous. And a proclamation of some kind is not the same as an ordinance. And this thing about, they had an ordinance that's more important than a proclamation, but they won't even do a proclamation.
Why can't they say, if both of these guys think that this is a bad idea, what's going on here, why cannot they're a majority of the board. Why cannot they say, oh, well, Cheryl's going to be mad at them? Listen, that's what's going on here. They don't
put out
want
press
her
releases before saying the opinion of the board, of majority of the board.
Yes, of course.
The majority of the board is written into many of the things that they do.
Yes. And listen, if Sandy Casanelli was the one in the middle there, you think they'd care at all about it? No. They wouldn't. They'd roll right over the top of her.
Absolutely, and they did. Look, and but the main point on this is not that they've never done it in the past. They've done it many times in the past. The main point is they just did it at the beginning of that same meeting we were watching before, where they read one and didn't read the other. One had two, the other had two. What's the difference? The main point is they're trying to evade any kind of responsibility for taking a stand on anything. They're afraid. That's putting it bluntly. They're simply afraid. They have no guts.
And and they're afraid of two things. Number one, they're afraid of Cheryl. And number two, they're afraid of this. They're afraid that the majority of the public actually does think this way.
Are they,
and so,
well, are they crazy? I need to stop asking questions.
Okay,
but even if Cheryl is upset, what is she going to do? Act crazy? How will we know the difference?
Right. This all comes back to, if you care about something, show up and represent. If you don't, this is the kind of thing that's going to happen. I mean, look at these guys. Would not have there wouldn't be any ambiguity there if people showed up in force and said, hey, no, this is what we think, this is what we believe. They'd be thumping the table. They'd be saying, this is wrong what they're doing, and la, 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 la. They would be.
There was a time we've told you about where the Secretary of the Interior, I think, showed up in Medford, and the commissioners had said, well, we're going to go down there and tell them everything that we think. So maybe the Secretary of Agriculture, I'm sorry, it might have been Tom Vilsack. And we're going to go down there and we're going to give them a piece of our mind, like they can spare that. And when they got down there, they sat on their hands. They had nothing to say, absolutely nothing. They were kind of cowering is not exactly an exaggeration. They were all sitting together and they were like, they weren't saying, and they were hardly moving. And it was Sandy that got up. I got up. Vivian Kirkpatrick Pilger got up. Other people got up, and we said something like, hey, we don't agree with this. The commissioners had zero to say. And the worst part about it wasn't that they had nothing to say. That's bad enough. But they had bragged about how they were going to say something.
Yeah. You know what it is? I think that it's very, very difficult to be involved in government and not think that the people up at the higher level, or the people up at the and see the illusion creeped into the premise that I was putting out there, that this is a higher level. They're not. They're just a different section of government. But these people have bought the premise that state and federal, they're both higher than you. You're the underling. Shut up and take what we're giving you. And
be intimidated by these guys. We need people who are not intimidated.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean you need to declare revolution, but can you say what you think? You say, this is what I think. Well, then say so in a public meeting. Oh, no, I can never do that. Get out. I mean, really, get out.
Well, listen, we have a recent example of how to get what you want from the federal government, and just tell them that you want to start making nuclear weapons here. And if you say, listen, we just want to make a couple of bombs, and we want to have about 8,000 centrifuges going, and they'll say, well, knock it down to 3,000 and we'll give you $100 billion. And you go, okay, all right.
Nice.
That works.
That's really good. Okay.
$100 billion. How long would that keep law enforcement in Josephine County going? At least a couple of years.
Well, and most of these guys are taking and putting in some offshore account, even offshore from Iran. Okay,
yeah, right.
All right,
yes.
Of course they are. Well, that wouldn't be the first time that happened. With the Shah, it happened too. But okay, so the next little series of clips that we're going to show you are Bill Hunker got up. He's been on this show, and he said about this thing about county fire. Why don't you tell us, who wrote this, and why is it important who wrote it? It's important because we have our suspicions that the people who wrote it are the competitors, or sympathetic to the competitors, to county fire. Mm-hmm. And they're alluding that maybe they think that too. And there is a factor here where it looks like they're trying to push these guys out of business. So, but Bill Hunker just asked the question, well, who wrote this thing? The commissioners are very super sensitive. Sorry. They're super sensitive these days to any kind of criticism. Let's hear what they have to say on this subject.
This fire thing is amazing how a little spark can cause such a great conflagration. County Fire is one of the two private fire companies in Josephine County. County Fire and Rural Metro, the two private companies operate in Josephine County. There is nothing in any ordinance, proposed or otherwise, that would force one or the other company to cease operations. That doesn't have anything to do with this.
that has everything to do with this. That's exactly the opposite of the truth. It looks like what they're doing is they're making up rules, minimum standards. So suddenly we need, these guys meet the minimum standards federally. They meet the minimum standards in the state. And so now we need to have new minimum standards that are even stricter in Josephine County. Why? Because the board that didn't want these guys on their board in the first place, they want minimum standards that are targeted directly at county fire. It's no kidding. I mean, many of you have seen these standards. It's directly aimed at pushing these guys.
Right. And this is directly analogous to what happens in Washington, D.C., where you have K Street lobbyists and they're, the only thing missing here is the lobbyist. You have a direct connection between the company and the county somehow. In Washington, they'd be a little bit more stealth about it, and they'd have their intermediary go talk to them and say, "Hey, listen, how about $1 million for your campaign if you push on this legislation or whatever that's going to help our company." Well, there is a little bit. There's obviously a connection between Cheryl Walker and AMR and 911 and all that kind of stuff, because she's the liaison to the 911 board, and she's also, I guess, has something to do with the emergency operations within the county. Is that not right?
Yeah, she's the liaison to that too. That's right. And so it is a direct connection. People, we're not making this up. It's a direct connection. Okay, play the next little video clip. See what else Keith has to say.
Matter of fact, is trying to simply support that whole process, and there's nothing in there. I mean, we haven't polled the board, but I speak on behalf of the board. I certainly believe that would be just an unthinkable conclusion to have only one private fire company in Josephine County operating. It's just terrible. There needs to be a concept of a competition that allows for free operation and that kinds of things. And there's nothing in this ordinance proposed that would rule out or mandate any one particular private company to be operating. It's just not there.
No, it's not in the ordinance.
I'm not so sure about that.
It doesn't specifically say in the ordinance there will be only one company. Right.
But it does exclude any company from operating with 911 and some of these water hookups and the radio, common radio frequency stuff, unless you're a member of this Chiefs board, and they were being excluded from being the Chiefs board. And who holds the key to that? That's their competition. I mean, you don't have to put too many dots together to come to this conclusion.
No, it's a direct dot-to-dot connection on this. Yeah, the guys that wrote this is why people are asking who wrote this, why they will not answer who wrote this, because we know who wrote this. Come on.
And Dale and I were having a conversation this morning about that, and I thought, that's not important. And then after he explained this thing to me, I go, yeah, you got a point there. There may well be something going on where someone inside AMR / rural metro wrote some of these rules, because it's not the board writing these rules. It's somebody else that has written the rules. And the person who is that gal that was sitting up there? She's she has something to do with emergency services. What's her name?
Right. She's the emergency services manager. That's Jenny.
Okay.
Jenny Hall. Right.
Right. So, and she's probably not writing them either. So who's she getting them from? I think it's a valid question to be answered.
Right. And that's why Bill Hunker asked it. And this is why they will not answer. You'll see later what Simon has to say about answering that question. It's very interesting, I think. We're going to end with that, but we're getting there. Go ahead. So keep in mind, there's nothing. Nobody's trying to do anything. Would you please go back to sleep? There's nothing. Go ahead.
Also, it needs to be understood that we began with a draft, capital DRAFT, across the face of this proposed ordinance that we are looking at. And it is not a finished document by any means. It's a document that is trying to look at and trying to be developed. If it can be developed, fine. That's great. If it can't be developed, fine. That's great. That's not the issue.
But in the meantime, you shouldn't know what's in that draft, and you certainly shouldn't have anything to say about it. Shut up and sit down. Good day, sir.
They weren't sharing the draft, the D-R-A-F-T. They weren't
capital D-R-A-F-T.
They weren't sharing it with County Fire.
Yes,
they
right,
only
exactly.
shared it with the guys rural metro. Hey. Well,
yes.
Look, and the other thing is, every stupid idea and good one that they've come up with started with a draft. Well, it's only a draft. It doesn't mean anything. Yes, of course it means something, because they're very close to making the final decision. It always starts with the draft.
Listen, that's like saying, we have to pass the bill so you can find out what's in it. I mean, it really isn't that much worse than saying that. I mean, when are you planning on telling us about this? When Mr. Heck, do you think it's okay for the public to know what's in the legislation?
Well, they've said in the past that the reason that they don't share things is say draft on them.
Mm-hmm.
People might be confused.
People might be confused, or people might actually have an opinion about it.
Right.
Don't you think that perhaps maybe it's constructive if there's a draft and somebody reads it and they have an objection to a certain part of it, making that objection known to the board? Is that not constructive? They could just say you're full of bull feathers, or they could say, wow, you really got a point there. But I don't see what the problem is in bringing it up.
Now, what happened with this minimum standards draft? Keith asked a question of the guy that brought it to him. My understanding is, I think I've got this right, he used to be with Rural Metro. That's nice. Okay. And now he's in charge, I think, the Chiefs Association. Okay. And so I think so, but I'm not 100% sure. I think that's what's happening. It's hard to tell the players sometimes. And Keith says, now it says here something about 24 hours at each station. Does everybody have 24-hour minimum standards?
Yes.
Does everybody have that? Well, no, actually, nobody has that. Why is this in the minimum standards draft? The draft, D-R-A-F-T.
Yeah, capital D-R-A-F-T. Yeah, good question.
Who wrote that?
Who wrote that?
And if these are things that are supposedly easy for rural metro to meet, except for that, then who is it not easy for it to meet? Let's see. Let's think this through. Who would find it hard to meet these minimum standards that are somehow more stringent than the federal government?
Yeah.
And
the state government.
And the state government. Why do we need local rules?
Yeah, well, I think personally, we need local rules so that we can exclude people and give good deals to our friends. I don't know what that means if ultimately somebody's campaign is going to get bankrolled behind this, or you got to follow the money, who's getting paid. If there's going to be some exclusivity here, there is going to be a price that gets paid for it. No company is going to come to the board with a proposal like this thinking that they can pull the wool over their eyes and get them to do what they want them to do, that's going to benefit them without the board knowing what's going on and wanting some sort of price for it.
Well, if everything was on the up and up, then why was it that immediately following our story, and the county guys credit us, immediately following our story with them, suddenly, oh, did we say you couldn't be a member? Oh, of course you could be a member. In fact, you're already a member. Congratulations, you're a member. That was pretty quick response. So who's sensitive about this? And why would they be sensitive about this stupid program that nobody watches, right?
Right.
It must be some of the people that do count in this area. Okay, so maybe we only have 224 or whatever subscribers that want to see everything that we do. Well, it must be 224 of the right people, movers and shakers in the area must be, and you're among them, that are finding out what's actually happening. And and when you watch this with Keith, well, you can go back to sleep because it's got nothing to do with anything. And why are you concerned? I just don't even understand why. It's a tempest in a teapot. No, it's not. You're trying to evade responsibility. Our job is to hold your feet to the fire. You want to talk about conflagration? Let's start there. Go ahead, play the next part.
The issue is it's a matter to which I believe that the board should look at and at least have some review of, but there's nothing in anybody's intent, and certainly not in the draft, to preclude any private fire company. County Fire is one of the two private, as Rural Metro is. Both of those companies are part of the Fire Chiefs Association.
Yeah,
and
no.
Why?
Yes.
Why are they suddenly part of the Fire Chiefs Association that they couldn't get into?
Yeah, he didn't really go into that, and he may not really be aware of what happened.
Except that I told him. But yes, okay.
Well, it's funny that he knows about it, and this was not that long after it happened. So somebody is keeping him informed on which way the wind is blowing vis-a-vis this topic.
Well, guess how he found out? It was 2 days after our show. I think they're watching the show. Honestly, I think they'd be fools if they weren't. And not that we're such amazing guys, although Mike is. That's not the point. Who's reviewing this kind of stuff? Where was the article in the newspaper? Nobody's reviewing this. You're not going to hear it on KJO. Give me a break. It's not on any of the TV stations. It was only in one medium, just one out of everything. It wasn't in the Ivy weekly news, whatever. We won't print things if our advertisers don't like it. Not there. There was only one place, and the only people that knew about that were you guys. So you must have talked with somebody. Thank you very much. And County Fire says thank you for doing that, because they got immediate action. Next.
Both of those companies have participated in conversations, input, revisions, perspective rewrites, having input into the development of these fire rules.
Yeah, that's not true, is it?
No, it's a complete lie. He just said that in a public meeting. It's completely false.
Yeah, that's false. That just doesn't seem right to me.
No, they were not involved, which is one of the problems with this. I got to stop doing that. Why is Keith lying to you? Stop lying to us, Keith. Stop it.
Maybe you'd stop saying, why is he doing that, if you actually knew why he was doing that.
To escape responsibility for anything. To act like everything's okay.
Yeah, there's always more to this situation that,
I know, follow the money, but we can't do that yet. We do try. And there's somebody out there that knows what's going on and has not yet come forward.
It's almost as though he wasn't in that meeting last week where they talked about this.
And if he knows what's going on with the county fire, how come he doesn't know? I mean, the guys were sitting in the room
right
for that, and they didn't get a chance to say anything.
And when they were on our show,
when
they were on our show, they told us they didn't have anything to do. They don't know what's in it.
So where's he getting that information? I think he's pulling it out of that place that we don't talk about on our show because it's unsanitary and it's a family show. This is ridiculous. It's a lie. He's lying to you. Okay, next.
Both of them are there. And we'll see if that's going to continue or not. I don't know. But yet, on the other hand, to say that any one company is being precluded, that is just that's just not valid.
Okay, listen. If you want to make it very, very clear that you're not precluding one company from activity, bring them both up and have them sitting up there at the board table with you, the representatives from County Fire and Rural Metro instead of just Rural Metro.
Well, this guy wasn't overtly representing only Rural Metro. He has ties to Rural Metro, but that they did not allow the other guys there. So instead of having that guy, Lang Johnson, instead of having him, have the only two, according to Heath, have them come up, say their opinions about things.
Right. So, I mean, it's not like you don't have enough seats at the table.
They were there. They were there in the meeting, like Jack Swift
Right.
was at that withdrawal meeting. They could speak.
Right.
They wanted to speak.
Right.
But they're precluded from speaking.
Yes.
And when you watch this, once again, this is why I'm thinking of doing this little series about just flat out lying to us. This was a lie, Keith. And so
Well,
he's saying to people
it's
that
not
they're
like
involved and they're not involved.
Yeah, and it's not like there was lengthy discussion that took place right after that meeting with principals that were in that meeting about who is potentially going to be excluded from business as a fire suppression company in the county. And they said, yeah, county fire. Or
Right.
they alluded to the fact that it was county fire. It was one of them, and there's only two.
Well, and there's only two. It's not many times we've heard, like Simon Hare was saying about this thing about the Forest Service closing off roads. Why, if you had 100,000 people that wanted to hike that, 36,000-mile trail, why that would be wait, hundreds of thousands, 100,000 people? I don't think so. I mean, they've said that about us. Well, you're here with a camera. What if everybody wanted? What if there were 1,000 people? I'm paraphrasing that wanted to bring a camera. Like, if we should be so lucky, right? But there's just two companies. So you say to each of them, you get one representative. That's two people sitting at the table. They're going to rattle around in that room if that's the case.
It's not a big deal. Not a big deal.
No, this is ridiculous. And for him to say that it's not an issue at all, he's being asked questions. There were several questions at this Wednesday weekly business session about this. And what
that were being asked by people.
There's nothing.
Listen, if somebody has a problem with what you're doing, then either they're mistaken about what you're doing, or you need to clarify about something that you're doing.
And if they're mistaken, why are they mistaken? They're mistaken because you're not explaining it to us. Like the people say, well, I don't know what to say. There's a reason you don't know what to say, because they're not telling you anything. Yeah. And what they are telling you is this is a flat out lie. It's not subject to interpretation. They're both involved. No, they're not. Don't flat out lie to us. It's bad enough that you would interpret things in a certain way. There's nothing to see here. Move along. But to tell us that they're involved is just completely wrong. Okay, Simon, I think that's the next clip. Simon has a response to Bill Hunker saying, who wrote this? I think that's what's next. Go ahead.
It is a working document, emphasis. There is no, mastermind behind this thing. It's a working document. It's being revised. We're on draft number 2 now, and certainly there'll be 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 most likely if we want to continue to proceed on this. There is no commitment that it will continue. There's nothing that has been predetermined as regarding these fire rules and fire standards. Just not there.
So that was Keith,
so shut up and sit down and don't talk about this anymore, and don't ask us any questions.
That was obviously Keith and not Simon. I think Simon's next. I think, who knows? But yeah, stop asking. Just stop it. There's nothing. Well, there's something. This is what we do. We look at it, and whenever the thing that what's the matter with you, really? If you don't want people thinking that you're lying, then don't lie. I mean, if he's lying about that, what else is he lying about?
I think that you could react to somebody's question in a way that lets them know that you're taking their question seriously. And you know what? I would like to know why. It's this is the problem with not being able to have a dialogue with these people while you're standing there, because they easily could have answered his question and said, I don't know that right now, but why do you ask? What's your concern about who wrote it? Well, I'm concerned that maybe one company is writing that for their own benefit. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I'll look into that. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. I mean, he could have dealt with it that way, and people would have gone, wow, that guy cares. But instead, he's got to wag his finger in your face, you stupid idiot. It's a capital DRAFT. Come on.
Okay, so Now I think Simon's going to answer in his own inimitable way. Go ahead, Simon.
The county is concerned about it.
Dang it.
For several reasons. One, to provide for some uniform safety rules for all the companies, private companies, and the other companies to work and to have some relationship with one another, operating procedures, to where everybody is comfortable and everybody is assured that everybody knows what's going on if they have to invoke the other's help.
So do you think
Okay.
everybody's comfortable?
Well,
you know, they're not meeting their goal.
well, I don't know.
Comfortable.
Right. Yes, exactly. Right. You know what? I just think that there's a much easier way. A lot of the problem with the way that government does things is the attitude that they have toward their citizens about, whatever. I mean, I remember as a contractor, every once in a while you would meet somebody in the planning department and you knew after a while, I don't want that person. And I would almost like try to find out what is that person's schedule working there, so I can bring my plans and permit applications in at a time when that person's not going to be there, because I know that that person is going to be a jerk to me.
Yep.
I don't have to worry whether somebody at Burger King is going to be a jerk to me because they're going to say, good afternoon, sir. Can I take your order? And I'm going to say, I'd like a hamburger. And they're not going to berate me for that.
Or call you name.
So yeah. I should really expect the same thing. Right. I should expect the same thing out of government. Even if I ask, well, how many slices of lettuce comes on that burger?
Don't you know? What's the matter with
why do you want to know, sir?
Yeah.
Shut up and get back in it. Sit over there. You're beyond your 3 minutes.
Nazis. Yeah.
Come on.
This is the problem with our Harvey. I mean, the guy thinks that when we ask questions of our government, that makes us morons. He said so. Did I mention that
it's easy to treat people with respect
for election again, this next upcoming election? I should mention that for the first
time. And I believe you also mentioned that he's going to be counting his own votes too. I think we've never said that on the show before either.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mike. Okay. Now let's see. Simon, would you just speak up, Simon? Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, let's see, Simon. I think we were just pounding a number of nails in Keith's
he keeps talking.
There. Okay, here's Simon.
Oh my God! And then also the reality is that the county has not sought some effort to try to develop a unified working agreement, then the county might be legally responsible in case of some issue that came to the forefront. We are simply trying to preclude that. We're trying to show a good faith effort in trying to arrive at some consensus of policies and rules.
Okay, three things. One is,
can we just blow by this without comment?
No, wait. The county is not seeking any of this, right? The county is looking for consensus of opinion, and after Steve Rich advised them that ignorance is bliss, still they're saying we might be responsible. Yeah, go on.
If by just going through this process, people do, by incorporating them in the Fire Chiefs Association, these are steps in the right direction, and I'm not really interested in opinion otherwise.
He's not interested in your opinion. Yeah, that's a shocker.
I had to put that one in there for you because he's not interested in opinions otherwise. The other thing is, well, Mike, let's look at this positively. Going through this process of excluding these guys from having any input has now ended up where now they've been included in the organization, and look how positive that is. The fact that you were excluding them from the organization, and then we do a show, and now they're suddenly included. Why, that's all good news. No, that's good news in spite of you guys, not because of you guys, not because of the process, because you were being so stupid about it that people reacted strongly. It's not because of great success of county government doing the right thing. It's in spite of the county government doing the wrong thing. Now, Simon's going to respond to Bill Hunker. I'm sure of this one.
Trying to find out who we tasked to come up with this isn't necessarily constructive in my mind. Find out what's wrong with it. That's what I'm more interested in, because that's what I will focus on fixing. So that's probably more productive in my mind.
Well, you know what? Here, let's look at why we would want to know who wrote it. It speaks to motivation, and we're wanting to get to the bottom line to find out if there's some nefarious intent going on here, or if everything's on the up and up. Why don't you just tell us? I think that there is this thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there may well be some memo floating around that they need to somehow bunkerize the county employees from the evil people who are taking over the meetings and yelling out obscenities, etc.
And chewing on the furniture. Look, Keith said he's forming a barricade between himself. He used that word, a barricade between himself, between us, and he is the barricade and the employees, and apparently all their pals. The first couple of words, trying to find out who wrote this. Why should we have to try to find out who wrote this, Simon? What exactly are you saying there? Trying to find out who wrote this is not very productive. Simon, we're going to tell you what we think is productive. We don't need your opinion about what's productive and helpful. Like when I tried to play back that thing that proved that he lied. He cut the power. Yeah, well, saying such things are not productive. They're not helpful to our credibility. You think? That's right, Simon. And so cutting off the power is?
Okay.
Now, we got one more. Here we go. But this is on another kind of subject. I just had to include this because I think it's hilarious. Go ahead.
This is a separate subject, but we have a moratorium for 5 years on all mechanized section dredge mining in any fish-bearing or contributing tributary in the state of Oregon. It's going to put several thousand people across the state with an inability to either recreate or generate a revenue stream. And I feel is a fairly positive way. I have seen some of these situations. I haven't personally witnessed the fish, but apparently they're pretty excited about the opportunity to kind of capitalize on newly established spawning beds or food that comes out of this process. And I just...
what he's
excited?
Yeah, well, and I understand what's happening there because you're going down into, and it's not only rocks and mud and gold and stuff like that comes up with the dredge. If there's bugs down in there or whatever, fish roe, whatever is in those beds that you're going through, that is getting churned into the water, and apparently the fish kind of like that.
Okay, I kind of like Grandma Aggie. Okay, she's the patron saint or whatever of the environmental movement in this area. I kind of like her, and a lot of people.
She speaks for the fish.
She speaks for the fish. Now Simon is speaking for the fish by saying, "This is what he said."
Yes,
I think I know what he's trying to say. The fish are excited. The fish are excited. I think they're excited about these spawning beds. You know, when I was in college, I was excited about the same thing, bud.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I think, that wasn't articulated very well. I think people would have some confusion about what he said there unless they understood the entire process of, suction dredge mining. And if you listen to that, I'm sorry. Any tributary. Well, I laughed at it.
Yeah. Okay.
What was? Did I miss something?
No. You're saying the fish are excited.
Anyway,
the fish are excited.
In other words, no suction dredge mining at all.
Yeah.
Yes, but no suction dredge mining at all. That's the point that was being made. That if it's a tributary, listen, you don't do suction dredging on things that aren't tributaries to fish bearing water. You just don't.
Right. So we have tried to lay out in front of you some of the questionable things, some of the goofy things, and some of the flat out lies. These are flat out lies, and the idea behind it, I think it's really obvious, is to make you shut up. Stop asking these questions. We're not going to tell you who wrote this. We're going to deny all responsibility for everything. And would you please, please go back to sleep?